It's Alex Youngblood. I've got Brian Haskins here with me. We're excited to do another content call for you guys. So we'll wait for people to get on here. And as you are coming on, let us know what market you're in and just say hi and give us a thumbs up and all that good stuff. But while we're waiting, I thought we'd talk about a little bit about some real estate experience type things going on. I don't know if you guys had seen one of my posts recently, but there was a deal, and this brings up a whole lot of interesting situations, but there was a wholesale deal that we closed or essentially closed. Like the seller came in and signed their papers, and then the buyer actually came in and signed his papers because we were assigning the deal. And when the buyer went or started to work on the house, actually before the money was wired in, and found like what appeared to be a bomb inside the garage. So he was like, oh, hold off everything. Don't wire the money. Even though he signed off everything, the whole bomb squad was out there and everything. And it was a really interesting scenario, right? So
what did it turn out to be? Did it turn out to be anything or?
So your sound's a little bit choppy there, but just go ahead and adjust that. But actually, yeah, so here in Norfolk or in the Hampton Roads area, we're very military, right?
Right.
So basically what it was is it just turned out to be an empty shell that I think some of the Navy people like take these as like mementos and things like that of their time on their ship and stuff like that. So it was completely empty. There was nothing in it. It wasn't charged. But man, the bomb squad was out there and everything was absolutely insane. So
you got to take threats like that seriously today. Now it's crazy, but you would not expect that to happen.
Yeah. So it's like so the buyer signed the papers, the seller signed the papers, and it's like, oh, okay, so what do you do at this point? The guy's saying now he's not going to wire the funds, and he's already signed the papers. So what would happen if over the weekend that house burned down or something like that? Who owns the house? Where's the money? It's kind of a crazy scenario, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Wow.
Yeah. So I'm going to look on here. Let's see here, because I know Facebook's been really funny with the Be Live comments and all that kind of stuff. I thought that they had resolved that, but I'm going to go ahead and review my phone here so I could see the comments and stuff like that. Okay. So I see a bunch of people coming on, which is awesome. So good to see you guys. Good to see Matt, got Luigi, Sandra, Dominique, Anthony. Good to see all you guys on the call. So if you've had a funny experience, you don't have to tell us about it right now, but give us a thumbs up or wave at us and let us know that's a funny situation. So anyway, we're going to talk about real estate contracts, and it's kind of funny that a scenario like that. Okay, here I see a bunch of comments coming on now. A funny scenario with that is why real estate paperwork is so important, because I mean that guy signed off on that contract. He also signed off on the actual deed and all that kind of stuff. But good that we didn't have to say, like have him try to chase him for wiring his funds and all that thing, because that could have been a big mess. But today we're going to talk about real estate contracts. I'm not a real estate attorney. Are you a real estate attorney, Brian?
Absolutely not.
No. So this is 100% informational. You could take this. This is just from our personal experiences that we're sharing with you. Anything we say, obviously, take that, run that by your real estate attorney, and get that verified. So, but a real estate contract is really, really important when it comes to doing this business that we're in. And, it's not necessarily something to be afraid about or scared or nervous about, but it's something that you should definitely take seriously. So, Brian, what would you say are some the most important things about a real estate contract, or, the parties and some important tenets of one?
Yeah. I mean, so a big thing too, when it comes to real estate contracts, obviously you want to be protected. You want to make sure that you have things in there that are going to protect you as the buyer of a property. You also want to make sure that everything in there is legal. And a lot of the stuff that we're going to talk about today are some of the things that you want to use and some of the things to not use, obviously. But, for us, obviously, kind of, the first thing you want to do is start out by putting your name on there, who's going to be buying the property, which is going to be you. You're going to be putting on there the property address that you're buying, all the information of the seller. There's a lot of things, that you want to include kind of in the beginning part of a contract. But the other thing too is you want to make sure that you keep the contract very simple. So some of the key things is obviously you want to protect yourself, but not go way overboard on what you're putting in there. You don't want to throw a bunch of stuff in there and stuff like that. But obviously the first part of the contract is going to start out just by identifying who's buying the property, which is going to be you, identifying the actual property address, and then typically the seller's information. That's kind of how you're going to start the contract out.
Yeah. So, I mean, those are just basics of any contract, is when you identify the parties that are going to be entering into the agreement, right? But an important thing here is, and this is really important, is you should go into every real estate contract with the intention and the ability to close, right? Now, some people might be like, whoa, I don't have any money. I can't close on deals or anything like that, right? But the fact is that hard money is so easily findable. It's so readily available that if you have a really good and true deal, you will be able to fund it with hard money or some kind of funding along those lines. Just look online, just in the Facebook group itself, check out, look for hard money. You will definitely find it because it's based on the deal itself, not you. So it has absolutely nothing to do with who you are credit wise, whatever the case is, right? So if you go into every deal with that purpose of potentially closing on it, right? Obviously, the assignment of contract phrase gives you the ability to assign it if you choose to. But if you do that, you're going to take this more seriously, obviously. And you're not going to be playing games with people, because when we go to somebody's house and we talk to them, we definitely have somebody that's in a situation potentially, and we don't want to give out false statements and things like that we have no intention of doing. So if you actually have the ability to close on a deal by using hard money and stuff like that, it's just going to make you that much more credible too when you go into the property. Now, obviously, and this is one of the most important phrases or clauses in a contract. And just like you, Brian, just like when you go and buy a property on MLS or something like that, you are going to have this clause, and it's an inspection clause, right? So every contract that you go into should have a real estate inspection clause, right? Because that inspection is going to let you know if this deal is viable, whether it's for you or for whatever situation that you're working, whether it's an assignment, a contract, or something like that. That inspection clause allows you to do just that. I know there are different states and things like that actually have like due diligence. Actually, like they have an inspection, but also have a due diligence period, and there's actually a fee to go into the due diligence period. But that's all going to be based on your state. But that inspection time is going to be the time where you decide if this deal is viable for you, hard money wise, or if you've got a potential buyer or somebody that you want to assign the contract to at that point. So that's really important. That's really key. You don't want to go in throwing out real estate contracts on everybody and everything that you see, because it is really a serious thing. Not something that you necessarily need to be afraid of, but that inspection clause there is definitely there to protect you, because honestly, there are things that you may not see that on that initial time when you sign the contract, you might not notice, that there's termites that are eating up the house or something like that.
Yeah, and another reason why I started using the inspection clause years ago, I never got into, there's a million different clauses that people use, and we'll talk about those in a little bit. But, you hear about the term weasel clauses and stuff like that. Your goal as a real estate investor is to be able to help people. Obviously it's great that we're making money, but you never want to put someone in a situation to where you tell them that you're going to be buying their property and they think that deal's done. and then you aren't able to close on it. But what's nice about the inspection clause, and the reason why it's the best clause to use in my personal experience, I mean, obviously you have to kind of do this on your own judgment, but number one, people are used to an inspection clause. Whenever they buy a house or sell a house, that's typically something that's very common to people, so they understand it. So, and that's really kind of what we want to do is we want, you obviously don't want to confuse the people you're working with, and people are going to be able to spot weasel clauses a mile away, and a lot of times people use multiple weasel clauses to be able to get out of the contract. But if you do an inspection clause, essentially that gives you the right to be able to, go through the property, bring contractors through the property, make sure that it is everything that you say that it is, or everything that it is, and you don't run into potential problems. But it's nice that people kind of understand that. But it also gives you enough time to be able to go out and see if this is something that that you either want to close on, keep for yourself and rehab, or assign to somebody else. And it gives you time to be able to do that. So it's really important to kind of, to keep in mind that, our goal is to be able to help these people. We don't want to just go out and just randomly put properties under contract to see if we can make a couple dollars on it, because that's really not the right way to build a long-term business. You want to make sure that you're making good decisions, having the proper education to understand how to know if it's a good deal or not, going through, the right, ways of, estimating the value of the property and running comps and stuff like that. And then once you put that property under contract, feel confident that, if for some reason you can't find a buyer right away for it, or that you have to close on it, that that it's still a good enough deal that you're going to be able to still make money on it and things like that. So it really, like you said, kind of helps you level yourself up a little bit by going into every situation to where you're expecting to close on that property. And that's really the right way to go about this, is because you're trying to help them solve a problem and they feel like their problem is done. So you don't want to go into a circumstance to where, you're just putting that property under contract in hopes that you can throw it out on Craigslist and see if someone will give you a couple $100 more for that property. That's definitely not the right way, but it happens a lot. So you just definitely want to make sure that you are going through the right channels of, making sure that when you're putting offers under contract that the contract is set up to where, you have the inspection clause if something happens and you need to get out of the deal. But you still want to be upfront and honest with the people and not put anything under contract that you don't know is a good enough deal that if you had to close on it, you could.
Yeah. And, we're going to talk about weasel clauses here in a second. And the fact that they're called weasel clauses is because that's exactly what they are. They're sneaky, weaselly ways of getting out of a contract. And we'll talk about those in a second. But we appreciate each and every one of you being on this call here. Again, if you like this information, give us a thumbs up, let us know, give us some encouragement that this is beneficial to you and something that you're learning today. Because, I mean, the fact is you can sit here and you can watch these videos and you can watch YouTube videos and you can do all these free ways of education, and they're definitely beneficial, but there are bits and pieces. There are things that you are just getting and trying to put together in your own brain and try to figure out how to make it work. But we actually have an implementation program where we take everything that we're talking about here and take it and group it into one big action plan that's specific for where you're trying to get based on your market, based on your experience, all those kinds of things. So we can take this and really break it down into a step-by-step format that's going to work for you specifically on where you're trying to go. So if something like that is interesting to you and something that you feel is beneficial to your business, go ahead and simply apply to our implementation program. And you could do that by a link. Brian, go ahead and type that link in. For the implementation program, and you can simply schedule a call, and if it's a fit, we'll invite you into the program, and we'll get you going. I'm really excited about it because we recently, one of the students that we had in the program on our last coaching call talked about who you just scored a deal for $38,000 using just one of the strategies that we teach from a marketing standpoint. Everybody's out there trying to throw out a bunch of mail if you've got a bunch of money, but really that's a waste. So we show you ways of going in there and really narrowing down who you should be marketing to. So One of our guys actually implemented that, scored a deal. So that made my weekend. It was really cool to hear that. So if you guys are interested, simply click on that link and apply, and we will talk to you. So, all right. So weasel clauses. What would be some weasel clauses? I'll start with one. Subject to appraisal. Would you say that's a weasel clause? Subject to appraisal?
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to go through a bunch of them, but I've seen so many different ones. Subject to partner's approvals.
Partner's approval. My mother's cousin removed on the second side.
Yeah, like people use that. They don't even have a partner. It's one of those things that, but it's not necessarily your fault if you are using weasel clauses. A lot of people teach that as a way of doing business. So, hopefully this video will help kind of set you straight. But don't think that, obviously, unless some people are just taught that. And we don't use it that way because obviously, it gives people a bad name, and it can quickly give you a bad name if you go around putting properties under contract to back out of them and stuff like that. But it's one of those things that, you can stop right now and continue doing things the right way. So don't think that it's your fault if you've done it in the past, but there's just much better ways of doing it for sure.
Guys, I'm curious if you guys know of any weasel clauses that you've seen as well. Go ahead and post those here. This could be interesting, right? You could have a weasel clause that says subject to the weather on July 31st. No, subject to appraisal, subject to partner's approval. What are some other ones that I've seen? Now, actually, a termite is not a bad clause per se. If the house doesn't pass termite inspection, you could really be opening up a can of worms type of thing. So even subject to termite inspection, I've seen that. So I really wouldn't call that a weasel clause. Let's see what else.
But you could also kind of lump that in with your inspections. You
could.
It's up to you. Certain areas have more termites than others. Obviously down south and stuff like that, that's a major problem. But there's just so many of them. But
somebody's saying radon and lead paint. Who said that? Matt Smith. That could be something. That's something that's actually in a standard real estate contract, but I don't know how in the world you would test for radon. That's never one that I've ever used.
Oh, really?
Sure.
You must not have radon there. We have radon here a lot, and it's just,
really?
Yeah, it's a real common test in most parts of the country.
Is it just a vapor in the house that you test for?
Yep. It's a gas that comes up through the foundation and things like that. So it's real common in certain areas.
And how do you fix it? Do you just put a vapor barrier down?
They actually they dig a hole outside and then go down underneath the foundation to where basically whatever the rocks and stuff underneath the foundation have a pipe with a fan that essentially blows it up over the roof line, so it removes all the way down out of the house.
Oh, so you can actually remove it.
Yep.
Is it really expensive to remove?
It's usually about a couple grand, maybe $2,500. But also, it depending on you could get false positives, like if you have a lot of natural stone in your house, or if you have like granite and stuff like that. Sometimes they can give off false positive because they have radon inside of them.
Wow.
But yeah, it's real common in some areas.
Okay. Let's see. Somebody is asking, let me see who it is. Luigi's saying, who pays for the inspection? The end buyer. Well, actually, we're not really talking about like a home inspection per se. Now, I've heard of some people actually using a home inspector, like in a virtual standpoint, paying an actual home inspector to go through because home inspectors, they're going to do their job. They're going to come up with a big old book of stuff that you probably need to fix. Some home inspectors are absolutely nuts. On a new construction deal that we've got closing this month, one home inspector actually said, please remove the insulation that was left in the hall. I was like, okay. but it was the insulation that's supposed to just go against the attic hatch. So it was just sitting there temporarily, but he felt it necessary that we needed to put on the home inspection that we need to remove the insulation in the hallway. That's ridiculous. That's when you know you had your house is solid, when they have to say stuff like that, right?
Right.
But home inspectors will definitely, you could do that, but I would pay for it yourself if you're going to do a home inspection. It's basically, if you've got a solid deal and it's good, and you're really going to do a home inspection on it, I mean, it shows you're serious, but that, that's definitely up to you. Let's see. Anybody else have any weasel clauses that you want to add? And while you're thinking about that too, any other questions with regard to what we're talking about here, or comments, let us know, and we'll be glad to field that for you. Let's see. What other weasel clauses do you know of, Brian?
I can't even really think of them off the top of my head, but I've seen some really creative ones over the years. I'm hoping that it's one of those things that a lot of people are moving away from, but I can't think of any more. But anything basically that you would use to essentially try to get out of a deal without closing on it would be considered kind of a weasel clause. But it's funny though. I mean, there are some really good ones. People get really creative, and the thing that really kills me is that a lot of times people will use multiple clauses. They'll put a couple of them in, and it's just funny to me. I mean that people do that, but when I first got started, I didn't know any better, so I did the same thing. So
yeah, I mean, you got to watch out too, though. Like if you're assigning your contract on the property, you really have to watch out, for if a buyer is going to use that on you potentially. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Luigi says, is it a good idea to add a clause to be able to market the property? Now, let's break that down here for a sec. So number one, you cannot market the property. No. You cannot market the property. So there is no clause that will allow you to do that. You can market the contract, but you cannot market the property. So keep that in mind. See, somebody said, is making the contract unassignable ethical to weed out other wholesalers? Yeah. So you want to know who you're assigning a contract to, right? And typically you do not want them to be able to assign your assignment unless they are 100% being upfront about that. The last thing you want to do is to get into a daisy chain situation, and then you're left holding the bag at that point. So you definitely do not want to be in that situation.
But that clause would be in your assignment. It would not necessarily be in your initial purchase agreement.
Right. It would be in the assignment itself. Yes. All right. Any other questions or comments regarding weasel clauses or contracts or anything like that we can field? And again, guys, if you are interested, you want just a little extra help in your business, or you want actually quite intensive way of helping you with your business, check out that link, the REI mentor, bit.ly.REI mentor, and schedule a call with us, and we'll be glad to talk with you and see if it's a fit. If not, no big deal. You can feel free to watch these videos anytime. They're in the group there for your watching and learning experience. All right. Well, if there is nothing else, we will sign off here. It was good to talk with you again, Brian. Always good to get your experience with regards to real estate. And we will see you guys later. So take care.
See you guys.